Good morning. It's nearly 10 a.m. and it's Sunday and it's time to go to church. Only we can't. So what I shall do instead is record another of these little video meditations. And today is the second along this theme of the church under lockdown. And today I want to think about alienation. Alienation's a long word, isn't it? It's one of those social worker words. But it's a good word because it covers that general sense of feeling like you're the odd one out, feeling like you might be a stranger, or isolated, or separated from other people. That sense that you're in a place where perhaps you don't belong, or perhaps among people that you can't relate to. Or in the current crisis, the sense of being separated from society, which we do get through the lockdown. In fact, I would say this lockdown is making us feel alienated in some way, isolated and separated from each other, and so on, estranged. And of course we're feeling that way because that's the truth of the situation. We really are being separated off. And I was listening to a radio program which suggested that even if the lockdown ends, we might have to wear masks for a year or two. We might not be able to get too close, to carry on with some measure of social isolation. So those friendly gestures that we use to express our belonging to each other, we can't do them. We can't give someone a friendly hug, a peck on the cheek, or even a friendly handshake. In other words, we may have some sense of alienation going on for quite a long time. And it seems to me that one of the main functions of all religions is to give people a sense of belonging. This isn't particularly Christian. Every religion does this. And in fact, it seems that sociological studies have shown that, generally speaking, belonging to a religious group is good for you. You may find it easier to cope with life, that you may find that in some ways you're psychologically stronger. And unfortunately for us, it seems almost any religion will do this for you. It doesn't really matter if you belong to the Church of the Holy Tooth Fairy, or the Fellowship of Latter-day Light Bulbs. Whatever the church is, whatever the religion is, Hindu, Buddhist, Muslim, belonging to a religious group does seem for most people to make life a little bit easier. We shouldn't sneer at this. This is what the sociologists call folk religion. And the strange little common habits and rituals of belonging to a folk religion make people feel they belong. When I first came to Christ at the age of 21, I didn't come from a religious background. And I remember being confused by a lot of the things that church people did. I never understood the obsession with candles. Everywhere you went, at the slightest drop of a hat, people would start lighting candles. Big candles on the altar, little candles in people's hands. And the Christingle I found totally confusing. If you don't know what a Christingle is, look it up. It's slightly nuts. But the important thing is that these little shared rituals, I think, give people a sense that they're not so alienated. I heard people praying in 18th century language. People who didn't talk to me in terms of these and thou and how doest thou, but when they prayed, they did. And the songs they sang, the hymns. Now, with some of the hymns, of course, they were written 400 years ago. But even hymns written in the 20th century were using this archaic language. What was going on? I think all of these things create a sense of belonging, of being in a particular kind of mainstream, and sharing in something that is valuable. Now, I'm not sneering, I'm just saying that's the way it is. Under lockdown at the moment, every church is trying to maintain that sense of belonging. The Catholics are doing daily video streams of masses, only it's not a mass of people, there's only 2 or 3. But that's because they think that the priest leading communion is the centre of the church's life. So that's what they're doing. In the Lighthouse, we're using WhatsApp, aren't we? Phone calls. I'm doing these daily meditations. All of these are ways of saying, well, look, we are apart, but we still belong. The technology is a poor substitute, really, isn't it? It's a poor substitute for actually chatting and embracing and shaking hands and all that, but it's something. Now, the Bible does actually have quite a lot to say about alienation, and some of it is surprising. And one message of the whole of the New Testament is that actually to belong to Christ means that in some ways you're alienated with regards to this current society, this current world. For instance, let me read from 1 Peter chapter 2. This is verse 9 and 10. You are a chosen people, a royal priesthood, a holy nation, God's special possession, that you may declare the praises of him who called you out of darkness into his wonderful light. Once you were not a people, but now you are the people of God. Once you had not received mercy, but now you have received mercy. Now those are 2 wonderful verses about belonging. We have been created as this chosen people, this holy nation. We were once nothing in particular, not a people, but now we are. And not just any old people, we are the people of God. And it's all connected with the mercy that we've received from Jesus Christ. So that's belonging, isn't it? That's not alienation, that's the opposite of alienation. It's having a place, having a part in God's society. But then he immediately goes on, Peter, to say that if you belong to God, you have to accept that you don't belong to the world around you. This is what he says. These are the next couple of verses. Dear friends, I urge you as foreigners and exiles to abstain from sinful desires which wage war against your soul. Live such good lives among the pagans that though they accuse you of doing wrong, they may see your good deeds and glorify God on the day he visits us. Now the word for pagans there is just Gentiles. It means the nations. And what Peter is saying there is that although you're not Jewish by birth, you should now see yourself as being like the Israelites. You are strangers in this world because you belong to God. You are alienated, if you like, because you are no longer alienated from God. And we have to accept that we're strangers in this world. And being a stranger in this world doesn't mean that you're hostile. It means you try to be good for the world that you don't really belong to. You try to be good for the people who are not really your people. So we're alienated, and yet we belong to God. And a large part of the letter to Hebrews is all about this. I quoted from Hebrews yesterday, and I want to do it again, because it's about accepting that you are different. In Hebrews 11:13, the theme is Abraham, Sarah, Isaac and Jacob, a family of nomads over 3 generations, who were homeless, in effect, because they had been called by God. And this is what Hebrews 11:13 to 16 says. All these people were still living by faith when they died. They did not receive the things promised. They only saw them and welcomed them from a distance, admitting that they were foreigners and strangers on earth. People who say such things show that they're looking for a country of their own. If they had been thinking of the country they had left, they would have had opportunity to return. Instead, they were longing for a better country, a heavenly one. Therefore God is not ashamed to be called their God, for he has prepared a city for them. God is not ashamed to be called their God. He calls himself the God of Abraham, Isaac and Jacob, the three wanderers, the three strangers, because they were looking for a better country, a city made by God. Now, why am I saying this today? I'm saying it because it's easy to feel cut off at the moment. It's easy to feel alienated, to have a sense of not belonging. Well, in Hebrews we're reminded to remember Abraham and Sarah. Remember Isaac and Jacob. Remember that they too were aliens in a strange land, but they were looking to go home to God. And that's what we can do. We belong to God, even if we feel a bit isolated, a bit locked down. We can rejoice that we have a better country, a city of God. Well, that's today's meditation. It is the Lord's Day. Be blessed in it, and remember, this is the day the Lord has made. Bye for now.